Yeah, I mean, you want to basically use proper indentation and naming conventions, spacing, and lines. So, for example, you see a lot of this is indented. Here's where the block begins, and these commands are indented 4 spaces. So it's visually obvious that these 2 commands belong to this block called main. Same thing down here with my method. Okay. Now this J option pane is actually part of the command above. I'm just putting it onto multiple lines because it's long, but it's indented from the command that started it as well. So these are naming, these are good programming conventions that we'll talk a lot about as the semester goes on. Include a summary at the beginning, comments, good idea. Include the name and class section. So normally we'd go into NetBeans, and then maybe up here, I would put something like author, Bob, Timlin, date created, June 21, 2012, date modified. Right now it'd be the same thing. Purpose to say welcome to Java. I mean, this doesn't have much of a purpose, but something like that. So these are all examples of what it means by putting good comments there, so that it's readable, and they know who to go to chase after if it doesn't work. Will having less lines make the program run faster? No. The compiler ignores all of the blank lines, so no. Should use meaningful and descriptive names. So, for example, we call this one welcome, which makes sense because that's what it's doing. It's saying welcome. But extra lines, no, and comments, neither. The compiler gets rid of them. No, Java is generally compiled, which means you can't read it. However, there are decompilers for Java, so it really is possible to decompile a Java program and read it. But if you wouldn't want to put anything sensitive on a Java program like an applet. If the Java program is on your server, then the answer is no, they cannot read it. But if it's an applet, that means it's downloaded to the browser and executed on the browser. In that case, it could be decompiled. So you wouldn't want to put anything sensitive in an applet like a password for a database or something. That would be dumb. But if it's a servlet, which means a program that runs on the server, on your server, then it's safe to do it there. And we'll get into that as we progress. Okay, meaningful names. Capitalize the first letter like we did with welcome. If we wanted to give the class name something longer, then each word, first letter of each word would be capitalized. Indentation. It's saying indent 2 spaces. I actually don't like that. I like to indent 4 spaces. I think it's better. Use blank lines. You can use as many blank lines as you want to spread it out and more readable. That does not, make it run slower at all. The compiler ignores all that white space. Next line. Okay, so here's a difference of styles of whether you want to put the curly bracket on the next line, which is actually what I prefer to do, so you can see where the block lines up exactly. Or some people like to put it on the same line, end of line style. I'm not too crazy about this style. I think it's more readable if you do it this way. But both are considered valid, but my preference is this one up here. Syntax error, different types of errors. So syntax errors are like grammar errors. They can be spotted very easily by the compiler or by a grammar checker. Or a spelling error can be detected very easily by a grammar checker. Runtime errors are errors that can't be detected by the compiler, but they cause errors when you run it. And there's a whole bunch of errors that can be created when you run them. It could be that it's looking for a file that just doesn't exist. Yes, all the webinars will be on YouTube. It takes about 24 hours to get them uploaded. The links will be on the syllabus. So if you look at my syllabus in about a day for tonight's lecture, you'll see a bunch of links to YouTube. So a runtime error, an example of a runtime error might be, looking for a file to process. Well, the compiler doesn't know whether that file is going to be there during runtime or not. So that would be an error that would be at runtime. So a logic error would be an error that works correctly, but it produces an inaccurate result. So, for example, let's say you wrote a little robot program that checks people's IDs as they walk into a bar. And the program logic should be fairly straightforward. If the age on their license is under 21, they can't enter. Otherwise, they can enter. A logic error would be you flip that around and you say, if their age is over 21, they can't enter the bar, but if they're under 21, they can enter. So if you wrote a program to do something very simple and you just flipped around the less than sign or the greater than sign in your little equation there to check their age, your robot would be breaking the law and pissing off everyone that's allowed to come in. So that would be an example of a logic error. The thing works fine, but computers are dumb. So that robot is dumb. The program is what's telling it what the legal age is. The robot don't know that automatically. And so if the program is giving a logic error, and it could be as simple as, less than, greater than sign, so for example, it could be something like this. If and let's just put this here, int age equals 20. Do that. And you might have an if statement here that says, if age greater than, or say greater than, or we could say equal to 21, then let them in. And calling my method's an example of letting them in. Otherwise, don't let them in. But if you accidentally, let's say, replace the greater than sign with a less than sign, that's a logic error. Okay, the program works just fine. You just made one little tiny mistake. But it doesn't matter, because computer programs are dumb. They do exactly what you tell them to do. So if you tell them to do something dumb, guess what? They do something dumb. It's as simple as that. And that would be a logic error. Syntax errors, what is this doing? I think what they're doing, did they make a mistake? Public static main. Okay, this is going to have an error because it's missing the void. So if I come in here and I delete the word void, it gets red. That's a syntax error. IDEs like NetBeans will show you syntax errors immediately because they recognize them. It's like a spell checker in Word. Word automatically notices something that's spelled wrong or grammatically wrong, right? And it underlines it or whatever. Compilers or IDEs are like that. If they find something that's syntactically wrong, they recognize that immediately and let you know. So they know that void being missing is a syntax error because it's got to be there. They don't know that what you mean here, what you're talking about here is the legal drinking age. So as far as the compiler is concerned, well, that's fine. No syntax error. It'd be like you writing in your instructions in a Word that you're giving to the door. It's like, okay, step 1, check their ID. Step 2, if they're less than 21, let them in. Oops, you made a mistake in the Word document. But does the spell checker or grammar checker know that? No. But if you misspell the word age, then the spell checker will find it, right? It's a very similar thing, comparison of runtime errors and compilation errors. Or logic errors and syntax errors. Right, so division by 0 is another example of an error. It's not legitimate. They'll give you a division by 0 error. I think it'll point it out immediately if you did something like that. Well, that's interesting. It doesn't give us an error immediately, but if we run this, it should be an error. Oh, there it is. Exception in thread. Java.lang arithmetic error by 0. Can't divide anything by 0, right? That's a mathematical rule. Right? Our recent high school grads should know that for sure, right? Yeah. How come you didn't have to type? Oh, ln. The ln basically means put a new line after the print. So normally, if you do a print statement without ln, and I was hoping someone wouldn't notice that because I was going to explain it later, but you can print something and not go to the next line, or you can print something and go to the next line. It's like hitting the enter key. So including the ln is like hitting the enter key after you print out what you want. And not including the ln is like not hitting the enter key, just typing it. So that's really the only difference. Show logic errors. So this would be an example of probably the math is wrong. It's going to give you the wrong conversion because the calculation is incorrect. And we talked about the logic error as well before when I talked about this here. Another example of a logic error. Okay. Questions? That's pretty much it. That's slide 78, and we're already looking at almost 9. So we'll pick it up with chapter 2 next week. I'll go here. There we are. So we'll pick it up with chapter 2 next week. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just ask the question. You raise the hand basically means that you have a mic and you want to speak your question. Is the class on web access yet? No, I still haven't gotten that done. I promise to get it done real soon. Definitely by this weekend, if not sooner. Probably by tomorrow night. But it will be on web access. Your first lab is due next week. It's a really simple one. The only thing I want you to do is take our Hello World example and change it. Put your name in there and what your major is. So you literally just have to replace this single text here and compile it with Java. And this is really more to make sure that you can actually compile and run a Java program than anything else. So this first lab is really simple. Other questions? Any other questions? No? How do you write lines one after the other without using my method? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You can okay, this doesn't particularly have to do with this chapter, but I wanted to learn Java. You'll learn Java. That's what the class is about. Oh, what class would you take after this? Well, you could take 255. It's the next class, next Java class after this, which I'm actually teaching in the fall.